Let's bring in Jeff Mason, Bloomberg White House correspondent, retired Army Major General Dana Pittard. He served on several missions in both Iraq and Kuwait. And Stuart Stevens, veteran Republican political consultant who has worked on many presidential campaigns. Welcome, gentlemen. Jeff, you first, because you've been writing about the president's response to the rising oil prices. What is your understanding of Trump's latest strategy pressuring other countries to join his military excursion, as he calls it, when, by the way, doesn't he really mean incursion?
Yeah, good question, Alex. And also just to give your viewers a sense of why I'm in a van, I'm covering the president today, and we are outside his Mar-a-Lago estate. So this is what the inside of a pool van looks like. But to your question, for sure, the president is under political pressure because of these oil prices. And as your last guest very ably explained, the increase in oil prices will lead and is leading to an increase in gasoline prices, and that creates a huge political risk for the president going into the midterms. So the fact that over the weekend or over the last couple of days he has called for help, essentially, from allies to patrol or to go along with oil tankers through the Straits of Hormuz is another sign that he feels under pressure. And it's also sort of in line with how Trump reacts when he feels like allies should be helping him, even though this is not a war that he has done with any other ally except for Israel. He lashes out, and that's what he has done. In the lashing out in this case, manifesting as essentially a call for others to take part in this. He has also promised that the U.S. Navy would escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz, and I asked him about that on Friday on the tarmac when we were flying to Florida, and I asked, when will that start? And he said soon. But so far, that hasn't happened.
Okay. I still can't get over the excursion versus incursion, but that's just me. So, General Pittard, the Wall Street Journal reports securing the strait would mean big commitments of warships or a sizable ground operation, but the U.S. is holding off on sending warships, with Navy officers saying that Iranian drones and anti-ship missiles, that could turn the area into a, quote, kill box for American sailors. Is that how you see it, sir?
Actually, I do, Alex. The U.S. Navy, the force that is currently in the region, does not have the force structure to do the mission that they've been asked to do as far as attacking Iran, protecting the fleet, and other missions to be able to do that and also escort ships through the Straits of Hormuz. So I think that's the reality that President Trump's military advisors have given him, and that's why he's asking for help from others.
So, Stuart, Trump says that many countries will be sending warships, even though the U.S. and Israel have destroyed 100% of Iran's military capability. And then he adds, quote, hopefully China, France, Japan, South Korea, the U.K. and others that are affected by this artificial constraint will send ships to the area. Is the cavalry coming to help Trump, and will it include China?
Well, you know, the general could speak to this because he was involved in, I think, pretty much every United States effort in Iraq and in the Mideast. The traditional way to do this, I think, is to line up allies before you go to war and not to find yourself in a war and overwhelmed and then trying to get allies by badgering them. It's completely revealing of the lack of planning. I mean, your average Southern wedding planner can think further ahead than Donald Trump. And this is what we've ended up with. And nobody wanted this war. This war is not accomplishing anything. It's killing Americans. It's destroying any chance probably for a change in Iran, the law of unintended consequences. When you attack people and their public, the citizens, history tells us over and over, they don't respond by surrendering. And it's an absolute debacle. And I think there's a growing sense among the Republican Party of this, but they don't know what to do.
General, is Stuart right? I mean, is it the kind of thing that this should have been negotiated prior to going in? Is there something that the president is saying that will ring true to these allies? Because the truth is the Strait of Hormuz is blocked off and everybody is being affected by it.
Yes, certainly partially in that if you look at the prior two Gulf Wars that we're involved with, Desert Storm in 1991, we had 42 nations as a part of that coalition. And it was a tough coalition to put together. But President George H.W. Bush did that. In 2003, with the invasion of Iraq, we had 30 nations behind us and also a part of that. And on this operation, we have one, and that's Israel. And we didn't ask and talk to our allies, even the ones in the Gulf prior to this. So to ask now for them to escort the ships, that's a tall order. Many of them still will, because the Straits of Hormuz affects their economies. But it would have been nice if President Trump had gotten them along as a part of the coalition, doing that hard diplomatic work beforehand, before going to war with Iran.
So, Jeff, Trump told NBC News that Iran is ready to negotiate a ceasefire, but he's not ready to make a deal, saying this after Reuters reported that he'd rejected efforts to launch ceasefire talks. Well, today, Iran's foreign minister denied Iran even asked for ceasefire negotiations. What are you hearing about what terms the president might be holding out for?
Well, I think it's an important sort of discrepancy between what the president is saying and what the Iranians are saying. The president clearly wanting to show that he is in this for, if not the longer term, at least the medium term. He used language at the beginning of this war of demanding complete surrender. He then told various reporters that he wanted to have a hand in deciding who would be the leader of Iran. That has not happened. So I think you get the impression anyway that the president is saying, I'm not ready to negotiate a deal, in part because I'm not getting everything that I want. So I don't have the answer in terms of what his thinking is or what it would take for him to get there. But there are certainly questions in policy circles as well as in financial markets about what his end game is.
Stuart, 2 weeks into war with Iran, Trump has been knocked back on his political heels. He is more agitated with news coverage. There's public concern over American deaths, surging oil prices, dropping financial markets. How long will supporters and allies in Congress keep the faith?
Well, it's a great question, and it's already split MAGA coalition. One of their articles of faith was Jeffrey Epstein. Another article of faith was no more foreign wars. So here we find ourselves, he started a foreign war to change the subject from Epstein. Before this is over, he's probably going to go back to Epstein to change the subject from the disastrous war. This is a terrible position that he's placed Republicans in because, classically the way that you get out of these kind of messes is you have to admit that mistakes were made and ask people to give you a second chance. Look, this didn't work out like we thought. We've learned, we've listened, we're going to change. But that's just a move that Trump is incapable of. And if anybody else under him, like all these Republicans, try it, they end up getting crushed by him. So it is a real problem for Republicans.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever heard Donald Trump say he was wrong or made a mistake. So, General, MS Now's Hayes Brown is pointing out the dangerous significance of Pete Hegseth's no-quarter Iran war pledge. He writes, Hegseth's disdain for rules of engagement and the laws of war is apparent, and it could lead to war crimes by Americans and against Americans. How concerned are service members and even top military brass about this?
Well, very concerned. That's a slippery slope. America, we're supposed to be the good guys. Following the laws of land warfare, for example, the Geneva Convention, all that'll also protect our service members. But just how this is being conducted at the level of the Secretary of Defense or War or the presidential level, I've either been involved and or studied war for the last 5 decades. A war is a contest of wills. You fight war for political aim, and war itself is an extension of politics in many ways. Unless we can break the will of Iran, the war will not be over. Simply because President Trump wakes up and says the war is over, that doesn't mean it's over. So at this point, and it's early in the war, there's time for the U.S. to narrow the scope, get their aims right, and then finish this war, regardless of how it started, but finish this war properly. Or this will reverberate for decades beyond this if we don't get this right.
Stuart, how is Hegseth's posture and his rhetoric playing in the political sphere?
Look, I think Pete Hegseth is a tragic figure. He gets up there, he looks frightened, terrified. He has this kind of rush chairman manner about him, this sort of chest pounding. It just is completely in sync with the lack of character among these Trump appointees across the board. And, in the Republican Party, we used to say character counts, character's king, character's destiny. And we were right about that. And, Hegseth just seems to be gloating in this as if it is some sort of video game. And I think that just as Americans found this overreach with ICE, these death squads roaming around shooting Americans, to be repugnant, which negated any sort of unity about the fact that we need strong borders, we need to arrest people who are criminals. What's happening now with Hegseth's sort of chest beating, like meet me behind the crystal at Friday night football game sort of attitude toward a global war. It's absolutely repugnant. I think most Americans look at it and go, like, who is this bozo?